Okay, so we are back to the first two psukim in chapter 24, which I should get in packets. And here you go. Okay, so al takane ba'anshe, al takane ba'anshe ra'av, al tis'av lios itam, ki shod yehegel libam amal sifsem tedaber. So we translated that as, don't be jealous of bad men and don't desire to be with them, because their hearts think about plunder or robbery. And plain shot is and, although Isaac suggested it might be but, and their lips speak toil, mischief, iniquity, or trouble. Okay, that's a ambiguous term there. Okay, so our questions were, why would you be jealous of Anshe Ra? And we said you have to know that they are Anshe Ra, because otherwise you can't use the pasuk. And what exactly are you jealous of? What's the chiddush? Two, who are these Anshe Ra? Is the Ra limited to the two activities specified in pasuk bet, or is it something else? Is it generally Ra? Is that why you use such a bad term? We also didn't ask question of I wonder why it says Anshe Ra'a instead of Risha'in, or some other like normal Mishlei archetype, you get that occasionally in Mishlei, like Ish Tov or Ish Ra, which is seemingly a deliberate avoidance of like a specific, type of Mishlei badness. So just another question there. All right, three, what is the difference and the relationship between being jealous of them and desiring to be with them? Also, what's the difference between kina and taiva in this context? Are they on equal planes, or is it like, is one of them more severe than the other? For example, don't be jealous of them or even desire to be with them, or are those, I don't know, are they related somehow? What is showed? Is it a reference merely to stolen items or illicit gains in general, or the activity of plundering? What are the two parts of pasuk bet mean? Their hearts think about plunder and their lips speak amal. What is the relationship between the two psukim? Does Ki give a reason for why you are jealous or why you shouldn't be jealous? I think plain pshat is why you shouldn't be jealous, but you could read the other way. And then who's the audience? What's the practical application? How do we do this? Okay, so I'm going to try to summarize what we said yesterday, but there were a lot of nuances, especially from you, that you chucked out, and I don't know how many of those could be developed into other ideas, or how many of them just like augment this idea. So feel free to fill in the gaps. Yeah.
There's also a question I asked you afterwards. Want to pick that up?
Thank you for reminding me. I totally forgot about that until just now. So if we have time, then we'll do that. Okay.
I lost the last 5 minutes of shiur yesterday.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. All right. So you only missed the facts of the Rabbeinu Yonah, which we'll go over. Yeah. So I believe our idea was like this: is we noticed that the pasuk is only talking about the internal world on all fronts, right? So it says, it warns you against jealousy and taiva, which are feelings you have. It does not warn you about following them or acting like them. Okay, even though the Mitzvahs, David wanted to say that al tisav lios itam la'asos kamasehem, okay, to act like them. Okay, but I think the more conservative shot is don't desire to be with them, stam, right? Not being with them as a means to doing like their actions, because then why would it say be with them? So we noticed that, and then we also noticed that the reasons it gives for not wanting, for why you shouldn't do this, is it's not pointing out consequences. It's pointing out what goes on in these people's minds and in their speech. So the idea we said, first of all, is that these people are. We explained the second pasuk first. These people are obsessed with this criminal way of life. So their thoughts are obsessed with robbery and all of the bad stuff that goes along with robbery. And their lips speak amal, whether you want to say that is more of like, the plans on how they're going to pull these things off, or if it's other types of sins, or like speaking about like the fantasy, speaking about like the values that they attach to this lifestyle. So that's what the second pasuk means. So the question is, what's the chiddush? The chiddush is that your desire and your jealousy don't attach, they compartmentalize. You see the hatzlacha that these people have, or you see what, the perks, and you don't make the connection that in order to get that, you have to be that kind of person. And we assume we're talking to a person who already would disapprove of this type of thinking and speaking. And the mistake that this person is making is he's not connecting the dots. He's not seeing that in order to reap those benefits, you have to become a certain type of person like this, And an example, I think of the many examples we gave yesterday, I think the one that fits most here is, let's say, like, we're talking about, people who are in the mafia or in a gang, or, that they have you see the gangster lifestyle, you see that they're swimming in money and they've got like, prestige and they have power and stuff, and you envy those results. But to be a person like that, you have to be constantly plotting about how to commit injustice, and you have to be willing to betray your friends, and you have to be, engaging in like, suppressing your values or your conscience or your loyalties, or it's a turbulent inner lifestyle that is driven by values that you disapprove of. So the emotions only see part of it. I think I mentioned this after. No, yeah, I don't know. I mentioned this afterwards. I feel like I didn't mention this in shiur about the imaginative faculty. Okay, yeah. So the Rambam in the front Prakim, first chapter, defines the imaginative faculty as the part of your psyche that takes sense perceptions and then stores them and then retrieves them and can edit and manipulate them at will. So that's what happens in fantasies, is you basically you edit out all of the bad parts of the of the complete picture, and you only have the good parts. And that's the mistake that the emotions make, is they don't make that connection. So the point of this, so the audience of this pasuk is someone who already disapproves of the shod yehege libam and almost leaves him to the berna, but yet finds himself jealous and desirous of the Anshe Ra and being with them. And this pasuk is making that connection and saying, in order you want that, the only way to get that is to become that kind of person, and don't think you can get it without it. Okay, so I think that was the idea from yesterday. Anyone want to add to that? Yeah.
Just to answer number 3.
Yeah.
Which one's worse? I think being with them is worse.
Yeah, why?
Then you're actually, according to the pseudos, you're going to actually do like
right.
This. That's obviously worse.
Right.
Even if you don't, or the Russia or Spain, you're going to be influenced, stronger.
Right.
Proximity.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. By associate, by just being around them, it's going to rub off on you. Let me supplement that with a couple other little just tidbits I found. One is in the Ho'il Moshe, who is one of the newer members of Al HaTorah, Moshe Yitzchak Ashkenazi, who I believe was a Talmid of, he was an informal Talmid of Shadal. He was not part of Shadal's academy, but he was too young to be in Shadal's school, and so he was but he was a Ben Bias of Shadal's home. That's what I learned. Yeah. So he says, showed. First of all, he defines showed. He says is l'shaded ulhazik lacherin. Oh, sorry. No. First he says lios itam. This is the one I want. Lihis lavos aleim afilu l'sha'ashea v'tiul. To accompany them, even for fun and for going on outings. Okay. So I think it's a really interesting thing, because this is a rationalization that you use, which is, I'm not hanging out with them in order to engage in crime. We're just going to the movies. We're just going to have a fun time, and that's where what Yaakov just said comes into the picture, which is no, any association is going to cause you to, first of all, be exposed to their behavior, because it's going to come out somehow. Also, you're going to identify with them, and the identification with a Russia will remove the resistances you have towards the lifestyle. It'll normalize the lifestyle. We've talked about that before in the first pasuk of Tehillim. Yeah, David?
Just one other thing also what you're mentioning,
identity.
Yeah. I think that also understanding at the same time that Mishlei would say to not be with a certain person.
Yeah.
In the habit building way of, once you create this identity, well, then the habit follows.
Right.
And then you're actually going to talk about this pasuk is lacking action here, but it is talking about identity.
Right.
Identity leads to action. Okay,
good. So it's I'm going to state that in different terms. The pasuk is not talking about the actions of the Rishayim that you're envying, right? But what is the action here? The action is being with them, right? Because that is going to create the identity that is going to lead, that's going to open the gates to these actions. Yeah, so just don't associate with them. And then he defines these two terms, which I don't know if this is relevant to our idea or just something, a fact on the table. Shod is l'shadid u'l'hazik lacherim, to plunder and harm others. Okay, so that is, we were wondering what shod meant, and we knew it meant stealing, but this sounds like more of a violent type of crime, where you're harming others in order to get their stuff. And then Amel is interesting. He doesn't elaborate. He says, is davar avon, it's a matter of iniquity, of sin, shahana asum mu'etes va'amalo merube, that requires a lot of effort with very little gain. Okay, so what's interesting about that, again, I'm calling this a tidbit to supplement the idea, is that I think we've talked about this before. There's always the kid in high school, okay, they're kids who cheat. right? Then there would be the kids who would put so much more effort into the cheating, time and effort into the cheating, that it would have been easier for them to just study for the test, like that is a feature. It's funny. There's a feature of a lot of crimes involve taking shortcuts, right? But a lot of the shortcuts end up being long cuts, or like, end up like involving way more upkeep than you think. And it's funny because like the fools, like the short-sighted fools among the Mishlei folk will totally be oblivious to the long-term planning needed. They'll just go for the short term, and so they'll cheat and they'll just get caught. The slightly more advanced fools will see what is required to keep up this level of crime and illegality. So they will invest themselves into into all of the cover-ups, but like, it's just at a certain point, whether it's because the lifestyle accumulates or what, or they just don't think it through, it involves a lot more upkeep than might be worth it for little gain. And I think that's what he's describing as amal. So that's like I don't think that's like a new idea, but that's just a supplement. Yeah.
And it's interesting you mentioned a guy like that. I
Yeah.
wonder, is there, because like I could also see a person who's willing to do all that work because of the thrill of robbing something.
That's also true,
That's a
right?
separate.
Right. There are other
guy.
incentives, right? Meaning, if the only incentive were just the profit, then it would just be a totally dumb investment.
Yeah,
But if you're in it
smart.
for the lifestyle, if you're in it for the lifestyle or for the fantasy or for the superiority or the power trip or the adrenaline rush, so then that would explain it also.
So I wonder, like, is there a difference in like how wicked those people are? Like, one guy's just a fool versus this guy's doing this wrong.
So it's interesting when you
I
say how
wonder.
wicked they are. I don't think there's a difference in terms of the wickedness of their actions, because both are capable of doing the same bad actions. In terms of their inner corruptedness, corruption, I think that the more they are aware of the system that they're undermining, then the more they are approximating Mishlei as Russia, and the more they're just doing it for hana'ah, whether that's like the hana'ah of the stealing or like these other hana'ahs, then the more they're like Mishlei fools. Like, in other words, the Russia. Like, that's why, like, again, in like the mafia is really the greater Russia than the petty thief, the guy like breaks into the drugstore, because the mafia is really trying to like create an alternative corrupt system to undermine justice and just like build their own power, Okay, so that's Hooiel Moshe. Another, I can't remember if this is a new idea, why I like this. Oh no, I think the Malbim said something that someone said yesterday. Okay, so, or at least he took part of that approach. He says, Al tkane ba'anshe ra'ah, don't be jealous of men of evil. So this I accept. He says, don't be jealous of these people, to be jealous of their success and desire to act like them. Okay. And shagam lo tisav liyositam, and don't desire to be with them, the ahava va'achava, with love and friendship. Okay. And then in parentheses, hagam shelo tasek masem, even if you don't act like them. So this is like what I wanted to say, and this is like not like the Metzudas David. I mean, he says Metzudas David, but he puts it into the first part. It's like Rabbeinu Yonah, I think, yeah. And we're going to go back to Rabbeinu Yonah. I didn't forget about him. Kadei lahasik mehem to'eles. Now, he says in order to get from them a benefit, but he doesn't specify what the benefit is. I want to just note here something that maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I noted this yesterday. It's odd that I used the word taiva. We think of taiva usually as like instinctual desires. I think it's very interesting. This is the first time I've seen taiva being used to refer to social taiva. There is a taiva for associating with certain types of people, a taiva of ahava and ahava. And then again, obviously there's a taiva for like the sexual, but this is like purely social, right? Ahava and ahava, and I think it's important to recognize that that's a taiva. It's not like, I think we often think of friendship as like a benefit or a desire, like a commodity, like something that is desirable. But I would not use the strong word taiva necessarily, but it is a taiva, like the man, in Maslow's hierarchy or whatever, like I don't know where socialization falls in, but like, let's check. I'm not saying that this is like gospel or anything like that, but it is frequently quoted. Psychological needs are at the bottom: safety, belonging, and love, right? Esteem, cognitive, aesthetic, self-actualization, transcendence. Okay, fine. So belonging and love is fairly basic, I think also because it is so tied into identity, so I think it's interesting that he says that explicitly. Or where was I? Okay, then he goes on. The Malbim goes on and says, so this is what was also someone said yesterday. So he says the second half of the first half of the second pasuk corresponds to the first half of the first pasuk. Amar ki libam shod v'shever. I don't think that's supposed to be Dibur Hamaskalified, right? He says their hearts contemplate robbery and injury, breaking. Also, their success is not real success. Because they always have to be in fear that someone is going to victimize them, right? That's the biggest cost of the criminal lifestyle. Opening scene of Dark Knight, right? Is that you always have to watch your back, if you're in the criminal world. And so in other words, he's saying, so it's a clever interpretation because he's saying their hearts are always thinking about robbery, not just them robbing others, but others robbing them. Okay, so even if they, like, in other words, if you do something legitimately, you don't have to. I mean, okay, fine. I guess if you get to a certain sense of success, then you're gonna have enemies. But there's no intrinsic thing where you earn an honest paycheck, and as a result of that, you have to watch your back. Here it's that exact trade-off, and he says, and it compounds from the fact that they hang out with other people who are like this, who are like-minded, and then it all rubs off and creates this like subculture of criminals who betray each other. Mefarish ki sifsehem tadaberna amel, and corresponding to the second half of the first pasuk that they don't desire to be with them is the phrase their lips speak amel. The tilmam mimasem lasos amel v'aven. I think he's learning amel as a sin, and you will learn from their actions to do amel and aven. So again, I don't think this is a new idea, but he's reinforcing certain approaches that we were taking. Okay, all right. I think that wraps up the approach from yesterday. So any other comments before we go to Rabbeinu Yonah? Okay, Rabbeinu Yonah, we saw did somewhat take our approach, but then he threw in a Rabbeinu Yonah point at the end. Okay, so he says, we'll read the whole thing again. He's here. First, a couple psukim ago, it warned against the companionship of a strange woman, which I believe we said is any woman who's not your wife, right? Not we didn't say. Actually, I think we said different interpretations, but plain shot, anyone who's not your wife. The Achrakach, he's here. Then it warns against people who hang out with alcohol abusers. The Ata Yaz here shelo yikana b'anshe ra, and now it says you shouldn't be jealous of anshe ra. V'chol ele azharos lehishamer min hagramos v'asibos hagormos lachatel. All of these are warnings to guard against the causes of sin. Bir inyan alt kana b'anshe ra shelo tachmod ashram v'otem yadam v'chavodam. So there he says, don't covet their wealth or their strength or their glory. V'al tisav liyositam shelo tfakish chavrasam. Don't seek their friendship. Gam kitir sheyesh lecha revach mamon b'chavrasam. Oh, I forgot one of the interpretations. I forgot one of the supplements. Hold on, I'm gonna go back before we do this new idea. All right, sorry to interrupt, because this is someone who we never do Ramosh Alsheikh, right?
Alsheikh, I remember him.
Yeah, so he's the main reason why I don't do him is because usually he doesn't take a practical decision-making approach, and also usually his commentary is extremely long. Like look at this on Gimel.
Is he on his phone?
He is, yeah. But here he says an interesting note. He says, if you see evil people that are enjoying success, they're succeeding in money and possessions, don't be jealous of them. Okay, and I think he's saying in order to not be jealous, he's also slightly difficult to read. Yimashech shagam al tomar. It follows that you should also not say mi yitzneni ehaya imahem. if only I could be with them, and see how do they acquire their possessions. Maybe they don't acquire it with wickedness. Maybe they only do it through heter. And I will do the same thing. So this is a different interpretation for the second half of the first pasuk. So we were saying don't desire to be with them because of the social aspect. Here he's giving a rationalization, okay, which is, okay, I don't want to be with them to do with the evil, but maybe they're not entirely evil, and maybe there are some mutter things that I could pick up on that I can get. Okay, so I'm calling this a rationalization, okay, because he's maybe it's not a rationalization, but it's a type of reasoning that you would use to be with them anyway. Okay, and then he goes on with a rationalization. The Shema Tomar who knows if this is true? Mani yahaloch im enase lios itam. I don't know what that means. Mani yahaloch im enase lios itam. Something if I go and experiment being with them, like test out being with them. Ula yasu osher b'mishpat. Maybe they make money with justice. And I'll follow their actions. V'yirvach li, and I will get profit. Okay, so he zahir me'asos kadavar zeh. Be careful not to do this. Ki yichzevu lacha, they will lie to you. V'libam lo nachon, their heart is not trustworthy. I think here it means trustworthy, not reliable. V'lo tucha la'amod al mitasim, you will not be able to arrive at the truth, shel devarim, of the matters. Ki ta'ucha, they will cause you to err. Hine showed yehege libam, their hearts contemplate showed the kirbam in their midst. Lishdod l'kabit mamon, to plunder and gather wealth. Amel sivseim tedaberna, and their lips speak amel ki yadabru v'yomru ki amel hema melim. So he's saying, I think he's learning amel as honest work. Their lips will speak as though they're doing honest work. And they're saying, oh, I'm getting this money from my hard work. The ofen I don't know if this is a typo. It's probably all yadekain, right? There's probably got to be an ayin.
Yeah. Let's
do our due diligence here. .com.
Yeah. He needs your email address at this point.
No, but I don't think I could fill out the form with yeah. Commercial break. They found new sfornos.
Really?
Yeah. So that's now published in All Torah. There's a guy who was working on sforno manuscripts. And I haven't explored this yet, but they announced it yesterday. I forgot to post it in the thing.
Who's they and what?
Let me see. Actually, I'll say this after. Remind me after, because I want to announce this because it's cool. All right. Anyway, v'yomru ki amal heim al melim yomei amal yiknu hanachasim ba'ofen shu al yidei kain yitaucha me'amod al kvanasam. So he's saying that they're going to dupe you into thinking that they're making an honest living, and it's funny. He doesn't see the consequence of that, but I can think of several. You tell me. Like, so okay. So what? So what would the consequence be according to the way he's learning the pasuk? I'll summarize one more time, right? He's saying, definitely don't desire to do their actions, but don't even desire to be with them, thinking that part of their success or all of their success is done through honest means, because they're going to lie to you and trick you into thinking that they're doing it honestly, but really their hearts are contemplating plunder.
Wait,
so I'm asking you, what's the practical application or chiddush that you're getting, that we can get from that way of reading the pasuk?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Is he saying that you don't know what they actually do?
Yeah, he's saying that you're not going to know what they actually do. I'll give you an example of this, right? Is that there are people who cook the books, right? People who are engaging in illicit accounting practices or like not paying their taxes. So you're going to join their company. And you're going to think, oh, these guys are successful, and you're not going to realize that their success is coming through illegal activity. Yeah.
I think two things that could happen. One, if you don't realize that they're doing things in that sneaky way, they might attack you.
That's number one. Right.
I think also then if you start joining their ways, not realizing this is a bad thing, you're going to start engaging in these bad illegal things, wherever it is. not realizing that you're doing something bad, and then you're going to start doing
Okay, good. That's another. So you could be a victim of their crime. You could be complicit in their crime without even realizing it. Yeah.
I have a question about this.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get more. Yeah.
I have another two.
Yeah, I have another two
One
also.
is that, even if you don't do like them, you're still abetting evil.
Okay,
You're
right.
helping their enterprise.
Exactly. You're still facilitating their doing of evil, even if you're not even engaging in the actual activities. Yeah.
Also, just for yourself, you're kind of becoming more naive. So to say.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Right. You the whole tochacha, according to him, is to be mochiach you on your naivete, right? That you think these guys are all they're good, even though they've got slicked back oil hair and they're twirling their mustache, which is the telltale sign of Anshe Ra. So there's that, and then I'm going to add to that this kind of goes without saying from what David said, but David said that you might participate with them even though you don't know that they're doing evil. You might become persuaded to do like they do and become convinced that you should do illegal activity, either because you adopt their values or you're in too far. And this is what happens in all the movies, right? Is that they start these illegal activities and they rope someone into helping them. And then that person realizes oh, I am in too far. I can't back out, or I have a sense of loyalty, Another a couple of pitfalls is that these are, again, clearly people who don't care about harming others. So if they are going to stand to get in trouble, they could back out and you could take the fall, right? Another thing is that, let's say you remain in your naivete and you think that Bernie Madoff really is making all this money. These people are according to the way he's learning it, these people are not just going and knocking down old ladies and taking their purses, right? This is because then they can't lie about it's an honest living. The purse was a bomb. The purse was a bomb. The purse was a bomb. The problem is you're in your mind going to think that you're going to have a certain picture in your mind of activity A leads to success B. And that's a false picture because it really is only leading to success B because of sketchy activity C, So you're not even going to this guy's thinking, oh, I'm going to learn on the job to become successful like them. He's not even learning on the job because he's getting a counterfeit, internship, so there's lots of reasons why you should do this. Yeah, Isaac.
So does the person know that this person is in Ish Ra or not?
So it sounds like he knows that they have a bad reputation, but doesn't have a full picture of what makes them bad.
Okay, yeah.
I think you have to say that that's the case that it's talking about here, because otherwise, if these guys are so good that there's no way to spot them, then you're not going to be able to apply the advice.
Yeah, I have another thought of how this happens.
Mm-hmm.
Is you are working with on J-Raw, and let's say in their company, whatever the exact situation is.
Yeah.
And you're doing the things that they're saying, which are all, let's say they start saying things that are all completely legitimate.
Yeah.
And then they say something that's iffy, the start of the doing illicit activities, but they're oh, this is just the way this goes,
Right.
It's
right.
just
everyone does this
everyone
practice.
does this,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Industry standard.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so you start doing that, and then you get comfortable with more and more.
Right. And this is going to be especially true because you are entering in a subordinate role. You're saying, I'm going to go learn from these guys how they do what they do. You're not going there on guard, so to speak, against this type of thing. Are you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question, but now the question is practically, what is it supposed to meaning? What should he do?
Right. So the practical way that you're going to implement this, and this, I'm not exactly sure what the standards are, but if these people have a bad reputation, right, that there is talk of sketchiness going on, then don't join their enterprise saying, well, I'm going to learn all the good parts of their profession. In other words, it's saying you should here avoid them based on their reputation and don't join in with their lot.
Okay, fine. So a question on that, mean, how do you know if that rumor's true or not? I mean, should you just like investigate, or should you just like
Right.
take it as 'cause
Yeah,
it's a rumor. You don't know.
it's a rumor, right? Yeah, so that's the part that I don't think the pasuk. So the pasuk itself is not addressing that.
Yeah.
In terms of like, practically what we should do. I mean, I do think that you should do your research, right? Not by joining the company, right? But do your research. We do live in a day and age where I think it is much easier to find out about these things just because of we're in the information age, and so I think I think that is warranted, and you should do that research and not give into the naivete, because again, there's going to be a part of you that wants them to be honest,
Right.
so that you can get their success, and that's what this is warning you against.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Jakob. Okay, yeah, Isaac. Okay, so now let's go back to Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay, so far we didn't get to the new idea of Rabbeinu Yonah, but we'll just read from yesterday. So on the second page, he says, "Kol rega yehege libam shod v'yachrosh ra'a." At every moment, their hearts contemplate plunder and they plan evil. Al kain, therefore, lo yitachen shelo tadaberna sifseim amel. Therefore, it is not possible. It's impossible that their lips will not speak amel. Okay, and I think here he means like sin. V'te'anish kishetishma mipihem davar chet v'tishtok v'lo timche. And you will be punished when you listen to what they say, when you listen to the sinful thing that they say, and you're quiet and you don't rebuke. So that, again, like I said yesterday, this comes out of left field, right? Like, he's basically saying, they're going to speak some form of lashon hara, right? And I'm using lashon hara in the broadest sense. Lashon hara meaning not just degrading true speech, but harmful speech that is intending, that is being used as a means of bringing about actual nezek, some sort of harm. And you will be quiet and you won't rebuke them, then you'll get punished, because anyone who's in a position to rebuke and doesn't partakes of that sin. So the question is, first of all, what does he mean? And like, how is that no disrespect, Ranier, how's that a good shot at the pasuk? I mean, it seems like an artificially it seems like a foreign idea plugged into this pasuk,
Why would he be quiet?
Why would he be quiet? So I don't think Rabbeinu Yonah is answering that question, but I would say because he's in their social group, and it's very hard to call out people in your social group for things that they're doing, that they're saying that they shouldn't be saying.
Is Rabbeinu just factually?
Yeah.
Is Rabbeinu Yonah saying that he's like a subordinate in that group, or is like an equal level with the group?
I don't think he's saying, but I think this would work even if he's on an equal level. Yeah, Jakob.
I think it fits in very well, because this is one like the primary mechanisms of social normalization. The fact that people are speaking certain values in you, and you're just absorbing it,
and no one's objecting, right?
No one's objecting,
right? And it's not just the values; it's even like plotting to do bad things, and no one, everyone just like is consenting by their silence. Yeah. Okay, that so you're right. That does fit in.
And I think also there is like a truth of it's a lovely phrase, shtipi koda.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like if you don't say something, I think there is a tendency to impact you.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, you are what do you call it? Part of you is okay with what they're doing, which is going to warp your values, even if you don't vocally endorse it. Yeah. You see that?
Yeah, just reminds me of something from Aבות.
Yeah. Well, let's see if it's the same thing that reminds me of.
Is all discover Russia?
No. Okay.
Okay, Rabbeinu Yonah's parish on that is very similar to this.
Don't become friends with Russia.
Yeah, because if you're friends with Russia, then when they do bad things, then you'll get punished for that also.
Yeah.
I think it's the because you're hearing this and you're not objecting to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd say at least from an onlooker's perspective, you're totally fine with this.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh yeah, let's go. Like steal purses from old ladies, and even though you're inwardly you're like, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
The fact that you're not saying anything makes it seem like you're endorsing it. And
right.
To a certain extent, you are. Like,
right.
Like the other people who are there who are talking about it would say, "Oh yeah, he was fine with it."
Right. And that's the other thing also, which is I think the corruption goes two ways. One is you're suppressing the part of you that objects to it, and that's warping your values. But then, like we said when we were talking about the Alshich, you are actually facilitating it through your silence. So you are complicit in the doing of this evil. Yali?
So isn't it also a little bit like nuanced when it comes to like speaking, like or being vocal about these things? That like I imagine it could also like kind of like make things more polarizing to some degree. Like if you don't do it correctly, that is.
Yeah.
Right? So if it just sounds like you're downright like which I guess should to some degree sound like you're downright rebuking them or these people, if they're not in a position, and being that they're Rishonim, they probably won't be, to actually take that in, it could only cause more conflict.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right that the practical matter of how to rebuke is a very difficult thing. And then there are, I'm sure there are other psukim on that, but yeah, you're right. You have to do it intelligently.
Yeah, but it's good if it makes more, if it drives a wedge between you and the Rishayim.
Yeah.
When they're talking about Resha and like they're seeing that you're not joining in with them. Yeah.
Just to clarify this also, there are times when the rebuke. So I think when your point, I'm coming from wrong. I think your point is more about like, you might not be successful in your rebuke if you don't take into account all these nuances, but there are times when you have to rebuke, not because you want to change the perpetrator of the evil, but just because just to save your own self from being corrupted. Like there are times, as sad as it is to say, there were times at faculty meetings when I was teaching high school where other teachers would advocate for doing, whether it was a disciplinary thing or like an educational thing to, vis-a-vis certain students. And I knew that this thing was going to happen no matter what, but I felt the need to vocalize, and say, I'm going to go on the record saying this is wrong. And you're doing harm to the students, even if I couldn't stop it. Ariel and then David and then,
so along the lines of, Ellie, what he's saying in terms of like practically them being, changing themselves or whatever. But like, my question is, in a situation where they are, wicked, they are robbing or whatever, like, I feel like sometimes is it better to stay quiet because they can hurt you? Meaning or even if they will hurt you, should you say something?
I mean,
like
this is
like
the
right.
This is the whenever something like that comes up, then what I always think of is Aaron and Egal HaZahav, right? So Aaron did not rebuke Klal Yisrael. He tried to delay and reroute their Avodah Zarah drives and delay it until like Moshe could come. Anyone know why, according to the Midrash, he didn't rebuke them? Because they killed Hur.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah.
Zimmer gave a great shot.
Yeah.
Because he said if he were to step up, then they would have killed him, and it's a really bad killing of Kohen Gadol. And like
that's interesting.
He knew that like if they killed him, they would have.
Right. So there are a lot of different ways to take that. Yeah. Like in other words, should he still have spoken up? And did Hur do the right thing, by rebuking them for, at what cost? That is a question. But I would say that that you also have to ask yourself, like to quote the I don't know which dialogue this is in, because I read it in the Gift of Fire, but to quote Socrates, is it better to commit an injustice or to suffer one? And what's more harmful? And so you could make the argument that them targeting you with their wickedness is not as bad as you partaking of the injustice yourself through your consent. I think it's a valid question. And obviously not every injustice is equal, but it's a difficult question.
You can, I think there might be ways that you can extricate yourself without too much. Without them like going after you. Depends on the thing. If they're like, oh, we're gonna rob a bank, and you're like, oh, I'm not part of this, then like they're not gonna be fine with you knowing about their plans to rob a bank, But if they're like, oh, we're gonna do something that's like, shady, like sketchy, but not like someone who's here would report it.
Right.
Then if you're like guys, like I'm not so comfortable with this, I'm not going to stop you, but I don't want to partake of this,
Yeah.
like, there's like ways of.
Yeah, but this illustrates another thing also, which you said before, is like, this is why you should get out early or never get in the first place, because it's only going to get harder the deeper in you get, David?
Yeah, just one thought also, as far as like saying people like this, even if you know that you yourself are not going to be able to make the change. Lahavdil, but I know how we talked about Amalek and the jumping into that hot bath, but even if they come to it, like it's like opened up for other people to follow afterwards.
Yeah.
That a lot of people won't be like the first to go like tell someone they're doing something wrong. But once the else has already started, and then okay, I'm not the first one. It's much easier for other people to come in.
Right.
So you could have a whole multitude of people following you.
Yeah.
That will come and stop.
Yeah, and similarly with the Chazal about once you do an Avera once, then it becomes mutter to you, because like you break through the resistance. And so that's another reason you're saying that there's another reason why like objecting could be a useful
even
thing.
If like just I would think for myself like a certain I myself am not gonna stop and why would I start? Like why would I talk up then? Yeah. But even if it is not going to be yourself. Right. Oh, before I forget, we have to realize also this is according to Chazal why the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Right, in Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, then there was the whole mix-up. Right, is that the guy was enemies with, I forgot which one. So he was enemies with Bar Kamsa, with Kamsa, whatever. He was enemies with one of them. He invited the wrong guy.
Enemies with Bar Kamsa.
Yeah,
he meant to invite Kamsa, and he invited Bar Kamsa.
Right. So Bar Kamsa comes to the party, and like the host tries to kick him out, and Bar Kamsa says, I'll pay for like my food, and the guy says no, and he says I'll pay for the whole party, and the guy says says no, and then he eventually kicks him out, and that would have been probably not as harmful. But what does Bar Kamsa say?
The Chachamim were there.
The Chachamim were there, and they said nothing. Right, and then that's when he goes and goes to the Caesar, and then retaliates against the Chachamim, and then it was all because they saw something and didn't say something, and didn't object.
You see something.
Yeah, exactly. Yaakov.
That was covered.
Okay, Eli.
Yeah, so it does seem like just based on the context of the pasuk that it's not about in any way changing them or even trying to convince other people of their evils, but more like to establish your
exactly
not being a part of
right, to plant your boundary lines in terms of this is not this is not me, right. This is not what I do.
And if you're like, I guess if you could be sincere about it enough or like very genuine, they won't push you any further. Even if they're bad people, they might not push you further for like, because like I want to make him, but like, he's only gonna harm us, he's only gonna like betray us.
Yeah.
Like that. So it's like it might be more again like a distancing of your.
Yeah, I think so, and I'm just realizing, what the best result would be is if you objecting causes them to kick you out of the group. That'd be the best. One more point here, which is
that's actually one of the reasons why a person doesn't want to object.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
they lose the group cohesion. One more. So I like this approach to Rabbeinu Yonah. I just had another approach, which is borrowing from another concept in Pirkei Avos in 4:2. Ben Azai Omer Ratz l'mitzvah kala kavachamora u'boreach min avera. You should run to a light mitzvah, just like a strict one, and flee from avera. Shen mitzvah goreres mitzvah, avera goreres avera. Because one mitzvah leads to another, or literally drags along another, and one avera drags along another avera. The sheskar mitzvah skar avera avera, and the reward of a mitzvah is mitzvah, and the reward of an avera is an avera. So the meiri, we went over this last year in October in my saga of Kayin shiur. I think it was the last time I went over this. Then Azai Omer, have you ratz the mitzvah kala? Amar shihei ratz the mitzvah kala kavakamora v'shihei borech min avera klomar. Shetei borech gam kein min hakala kabrichasacha min hachamora. You should flee from a light avera, just like you flee from a stringent one. Shemitzvah gureres mitzvah klomar. So what does it mean? So he's going to give three ways that one mitzvah leads to another mitzvah. Klomar ha-mitzvah kala tviyacha lechamura mimena. A light mitzvah could bring you to a greater mitzvah than that. V'chein ba'avera, and same thing with an avera. Shezehu skar mitzvah klomar. Here's where he says it. Nimshach mimena mitzvah acheres im mitzad gumul va'onesh. So either you're going to get another mitzvah or another avera through reward and punishment. Okay, which we'll see what that means. Okay, imitzad hahergel, or because of habit, because once you're in the habit of doing mitzvos, that will help you make it easier for you to get into the habit of doing other mitzvos. And then this is the one that I wanted to talk about today. or sometimes by chance. Okay, how so? Let's say you go to steal something in the middle of the night, right? And the homeowner finds you. And the thief defends himself against him. And then the thief gets up and kills the homeowner. Right. So he went in there only to steal stuff. He didn't go in there to commit murder, and it ended up leading him to commit murder. So again, I don't think I like our shot of Rabbeinu Yonah better, but here you're hanging around these people who are doing thievery. You were also going to be exposing yourself to many other averos, such as listening to their speech and not saying anything and getting the suffering of that also. So that's why we hang around the bad crowd. Yeah.
Just remind you also one to look at mention this phono, and then also I think you don't have time for.
Yeah, I don't have time for your question, but remind me of it in case we have more time. So just really quickly, this Sforno. Yeah, thanks. Let me find it here. Sforno. So the Al Torah. Why are we not connected? Al Torah says. Rav Ovadia Sforno was a major Torah scholar and leader of the Italian Jewish community during the first half of the 16th century. His Torah commentary is well known and included the most standard Mikros Gdolos. As biblical exegete, philosopher, and decisive of Jewish law, physician, mathematician, and more, Sforno was the embodiment of a Renaissance scholar. Now, what if we could travel back in time and experience what it was like to sit in Sforno's classes? And what if we could watch Sforno writing his commentaries, crossing out, refining, and adding material between the lines? Well, it turns out we can. Indeed, we can indeed have something like both of these singular and exciting experiences, as well as the ability to study commentaries of Sforno, which were completely unknown until very recently. All of this is due to the survival of two unique manuscripts and the efforts of our friend Rabbi Moshe Kravitz. The first manuscript is an autograph, which includes Sforno's first draft of his Torah commentary with copious edits, as well as his commentaries on Yona, Chavkuk, and Treyasar, and his heretofore unknown commentary on half of Yeshayahu. The second manuscript contains the notes from Sforno's lectures on Torah and Tehillim recorded by a student in the margins of a copy of the first printing of the Ralbag's Torah commentary. you got to be like, Ralbag is fresh off the presses, and like the guy's like eagerly taking notes on Sforno because like you can't just like get paper anywhere, you know. As well as a transcription of Sforno's previously unknown commentary on Rus.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
that'll be for this year. Over the last several years, Rabbi Moshe Kravitz has produced exquisite editions of special contents of both of these manuscripts, and we are here extremely fortunate that most of these annotated editions are now available in the Mikros Gdolos. Hard copies also available for purchase. Rabbi Kravitz is a Ger Chassid, is currently completing his dissertation on the commentaries of the student of Sforno, who took the note, and he is the newest member of the Al Torah team. We are excited to welcome him. Yeah, so that's the latest Al Torah resource there.
Is it translated?
No. But the place you find it, by the way, is you go to, let's say, you know, well, I want to show you the, they'll have it listed here under, in the regular Mikros Gdolos. Maybe it's not here. It's listed as shiur hasforno, I think. Yeah, I think so. And let's just check Rus. I'm not clear if all of these things are up yet or if they're just starting to put them up. Sforno. There you go.
What is that?
On all Rus, you'll have to find out. All right, let's and then David, you'll just remind me if we have time at some point because I think it's an evergreen question.
You haven't looked through all the Sforno yet?
Yeah, fresh off the presses.
Yeah.
Okay, let's stop it today. All right, thank you.
Yeah. I like how